How you going, guys? I just want to do a quick video on something that happened during, I think, late 2017 and through 2018. Basically, I had an intervention order put against me by an Antifa member, left-wing activist. I didn't hurt this person. I didn't violently threaten this person, nothing like that. They put an intervention order on me. It's a long story. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible, but basically, during the Bendigo 3 trial, when I was on charges of vilifying Muslims for doing a mock beheading, I would appear at court regularly. Court isn't just one day. You go to court, you adjourn, you get evidence, you adjourn, and then it gets pushed onto a trial. So we had heaps of court cases. And every time we went to court, it was a bloke that was always with Tom Tanuki or Tom Stephen, a bloke named David Hollis, a tall, awkward-looking fellow, fat, older guy. He would come to the court case and he would take photos of me in the courtroom, in the courthouse. I complained, nothing was done. But one of the patriots there told me who he was. It was surprising, but he was actually a murderer, but not a murderer. And I'll try and explain this now. Back in 1992, I think it was 1992, in Meadowbank, he went on a stabbing rampage because a dog was barking and he thought the dog was saying to go and stab people in the street. This is what he said to the court. So he grabbed a kitchen knife, I think, and went into the street and just started stabbing people. You know, like the terrorist attacks we've seen in Sydney, just started stabbing random people. 7 people he stabbed, killing one innocent woman in her 30s. She was going home from work, taxpayer, going home, minding her own business, gets stabbed by some freak named David Hollis. She died. So he was arrested, he went to court and pleaded insanity, and it went through. He was insane. So technically he murdered a woman, but he wasn't convicted of murder, if you know what I'm saying. Then he was sentenced to a mental home. He had to go to a mental home for 18 months, and then he was released back into the community. 18 months. It was so shocking that the Parliament of New South Wales actually discussed his situation and how did he only get 18 months? It boggled the mind. So a lot of MPs brought it to the Parliament to have an inquiry as to how this happened. So it's all out there. Just Google David Hollis, Meadowbank, stabbing, etc. So he got out 18 months later, and now he's an Antifa member, and he's part of Tom Tanuki or Tom Stephen's little tribe, protesting with him against me. And I'll get more into who he's associated with and the shocking hypocrisy from the media. But anyway, police contacted me and said, there's an intervention order for you. I was in Tassie at the time. I said, I can't get it at the moment. Next time I'm in Melbourne, I'll get it. And then when I went to the Bendigo trial, we had a 2-day trial or 3-day trial, but I only went for 2 days. The first day, I'm leaving the courthouse and I get caught up on the speaker and it said, Neil Erickson, can you come to floor 2? We've got some paperwork for you. I went to floor 2. There was the application for the intervention order. If you don't understand intervention orders, you get the application first. As soon as you get that application, it's in action. You can't breach the intervention order. You can't contact that person or call that person or do anything, which I didn't even do. All I did was expose his murderous past. So they gave me the application, which had a court date on it to appear in court, but there was no court date. The court date on it was that day when I was in court. Okay? And remember, the next day I had the Bendigo trial court case. So basically, I thought it was over. I didn't think it was valid at all. And then I had a protest with Avi Yemeni in the city, an anti-crime protest. I helped him promote it, and I went there, and guess who's there? David Hollis, the murderer, coming up to me with his mate. His mate's got his phone saying, you can't say anything to Hollis because you've got an intervention order, Like they're using the intervention order to protect this murderer from me saying anything to him. It was totally insane. So that happened, and I was in the crowd, and as I thought, the intervention order wasn't in place. So I got on the megaphone. I said, David Hollis, that guy over there, killed a woman back in 1992. He stabbed 6 other people. He's right there next to the Greens, next to the left. No one says anything. No one reports on it. Then I get arrested. I get arrested for breaching intervention order. But how? How did I get arrested when I was at court for the application? Because you get an application, then it had sets a date for you to go to court and actually argue that you shouldn't get the intervention order because it's politically biased. He's using that as a political weapon. I didn't get that chance. See, I got the final intervention order. They held a hearing the next day when I was in court for the Bendigo 3 trial, and they held a hearing without even notifying me, which goes against the intervention order guidelines that the legislation says. It says both parties must be able to appear for the hearing to get a final intervention order. I got the final intervention order without even having my say in court, which is illegal. It wasn't lawful. But because they state that I didn't receive the final order, I still was under the application. They've said I breached it at that protest. So then I went to about 6 or 7 court appearances. As I said before, you don't just go to one, you go to 6 or 7. So the first one was in Morwell, where he lives, out in Morwell. So I went to the court appearance, and guess who's there? David Hollis, taking photos of me in the courtroom, outside the courthouse. It was leaked onto left-wing Facebook pages. Look at Neil at court again, ha ha ha. He's threatening me on Facebook saying Neil's going to go to jail for breaching a court order against me. He's using this as a political weapon. I said to the court, I said, I'm not guilty. And they said, well, we'll give you an indication hearing. We'll give you a $100 fine and we'll settle it today. I said, no, I'm not guilty. Went to another court case. They did the same thing. We'll give you an indication hearing. We'll give you a $100 fine, no conviction. No, I'm not guilty. I did this about 6 or 7 times. Then I finally went to the trial in the Melbourne Magistrates Court because it happened in Melbourne, the alleged breach of the intervention order. So I went to the Melbourne Magistrates Court. I pleaded not guilty, and guess what? The judge found me not guilty. Because he didn't do it for this reason, but I did bring this up in court because the intervention order legislation is state-based. It's state-based. The Supreme Court and the Constitution is an implied political freedom, political communication. State law doesn't supersede that. So that was my argument from the get-go. I had a few arguments and I said, listen, you can't have a political activist who's a murderer who hangs out with the Greens, and this is what I get to too. The media love to attack Fraser Anning for hanging out with me and Blair. We've never stabbed any women and killed any women, but this David Hollis stands side by side with Greens MPs at protests and the media don't say anything. That's another thing. But anyway, that was my argument, yeah? The state versus the federal. This is in clear contradiction to my rights as a political communicator. I want to put my political communication. And if I can't go to protest and he keeps coming under a state law, I have every right to go and protest in the street. I said that at the start of the court case, and I think because magistrates can't deal with Supreme Court law like that, it usually gets pushed up to county court. It's a big headache for them. They can't do it. They don't have the avenues to actually follow that up. But anyway, I was found not guilty on a technicality because the charge was remaining within 30 metres of the affected person, David Hollis, the murderer. And when the evidence was I was filmed near him, but in the evidence, I actually didn't look at him. So they couldn't prove that I knew he was there. So I was not guilty on that. And then when I screamed out on the megaphone, I was 30 metres away. So they gave me the wrong charge in the first place. But look, this actually affected my political activism. That, along with the police arresting me and Ricky for defending ourselves, put us on bail conditions to not associate publicly or politically. The state used a murderer, protected a murderer, the poor victim, stabbed a woman, stabbed 7 other people or 6 other people, and he's the victim of me because I say what he did? That's insane. So if you want to Google it, David Hollis, Meadowbank stabber. I'm off the order now, so I can say my piece. But for the whole time, it was excruciating. Could you imagine driving to Morwell 6 times to plead not guilty and getting indications, then eventually going to the Melbourne Magistrates and being found not guilty, and someone's prevented you from going to protest because they're a murderer and I exposed that and they put an intervention order on me? Insane. But the craziest thing is, this guy hangs out with the Greens. This guy is standing shoulder to shoulder with the Greens. I could put the footage in. I don't have time on my computer. I'm pretty busy at the moment. But there is a mountain of evidence out there showing that he is associated with the Greens and the leftists. But, we can't talk about that. Let's talk about Neil being convicted of assault for defending himself at Milo. That's a big deal. Not the left-wing activist, the Antifa member who puts veiled threats against senators who's actually killed someone before. Let's not talk about that. But anyway, guys, love yous all. And this is the wonderful world of Australian politics. Catches.